Okay, this video is from The Bible Project. If you haven't been watching these guys or listening to these guys online, I want to encourage you to dig into these videos and podcasts. These guys are doing great ministry and have been a huge blessing to my life and to my family's life. But this is just some excerpts from one of their podcasts talking about how the first century church was so different than the culture around it, and how it influenced people in a way that had never really happened in history. So enjoy this brief overview of this podcast, and then I encourage you to go and check out the Bible Project podcast website and to listen to everything they have to offer on the book of Acts, so you can find out more about your story and what kind of cloth you're cut from. Blessings.
So,
Okay.
what do we...
Support.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm just trying to get them in my head. Like,
Yeah. So the peasant lower class is the vast
they're
majority
urbanites.
of people, but they're urbanites
Yeah.
in these packed cities. So there you go. You're polytheist. So you've grown up. You've got the Greek and Roman pantheon, many of which have been transferred into the Roman pantheon. They're added to the mix. The national god is Dea Roma. It's the Roman Empire deified. It's a goddess.
I didn't know that.
The emperors are lower level deities. They have temples built to them. So you've got a Zeus temple down the corner, Aphrodite, Mars, Mammon, money, sex, power, and the state are all regular deities that you worship. There's smaller level deities, sorcerers, right? Fortune tellers. You don't know if the gods like you or not. If you have money, you can provide lots of offerings for them. Things will go better for you. It's just, there you go.
Yeah.
It's life.
You're grinding it out.
Yeah.
And it's stinky.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So into this world comes these communities who look Jewish. You know what Jewish communities look like. There's synagogues in every city. So you have a category for them.
Yeah.
Right? They're really ancient. They don't work
On a certain
They
day.
don't work on Saturdays.
Yeah.
And I never see
they're
them
pretty
around.
moral. At least they.
Yeah, really upstanding people. I never see them in any temples. Never around temples. And they don't celebrate any of the holidays, right? But they're really great neighbors. I'm happy to have them as my neighbors. Because they're quiet, and I can trust my kids around them, and that kind of thing. I can trust them around my kids.
Yeah.
So then comes another group, and it's multi-ethnic, and they talk
They
like
got the
they're
same
Jews. And
characteristics.
yeah, and they also don't go to temples, but many of them don't eat kosher. They just eat normal food. In fact, some of them, I'll see them walking home with packages of meat from the Zeus temple.
They won't worship there,
They
but
won't worship
they'll
there,
eat the
but
meat.
they'll eat meat from there. And right?
Yeah.
And they keep talking about this crucified king of the world, who's actually the creator of all things. I mean, just there's no category.
And they're living very generously.
Yep, that's right.
And they're taking care of each other.
That's right. Yep. All the poor people in our neighborhood know that they have a place to sleep in a hard situation now, but they refuse to acknowledge any of the gods and all that kind of stuff. So they're like Jews, but they're also not. And
Yeah.
many of them are Jews.
And it's not in any way wrong or illegal to not acknowledge these gods, right?
Okay.
Or is it?
So here we go. So
Here we go.
One of my favorite Acts scholars I mentioned earlier, Kevin Rowe. He wrote one of my favorite books on the Acts because he's trying to help modern readers get into how Greeks and Romans would see the early Christians. There's another work I'll refer to, but there's two books that just are so hopeful if this is something you're interested in. So here's what Kevin Rowe says in kind of a summary statement. He says, Luke portrays the Christian mission to the nations as an apocalypse, a revelation from God of a whole new way of human life. I like that.
Yeah.
The apocalypse of Acts. And remember, apocalypse means not end of the world, but
A revealing.
A revealing. Yeah. A revelation of a whole new way of human life. This revelation is carried in the formation of a people, that is, the church, who don't simply hold to a list of ideas or beliefs. Their very way of life poses a challenge to the constitutive patterns of pagan life in the early Roman world. Embracing the Christian gospel meant creating a new cultural reality, and it inherently destabilized the assumptions and practices of any and every culture. Luke highlights this theme. It emerges particularly in the stories in Lystra, Philippi, Athens, and Ephesus. And all of them end up in riots.
Makes me wonder, if that's what you're getting into by converting your allegiance to Jesus. Like that's intense. Like,
Yes.
why would you do that?
Yes.
Why would you create all that conflict? What was so compelling about what Paul was saying?
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Actually, Larry Hurtado has another book. It's called Why on Earth Did Anyone Become a Christian in the Early Centuries? That's the title of the book.
That's the title of the book.
Yeah,
That
totally.
was my question.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
He's got a whole book.
It's a set of lectures he gave. His argument is this: in the early Christian communities, it's funny. Even though Paul's letters now bother most modern people when he talks about marriage, and stuff,
right.
in that culture,
It's very progressive.
super progressive
Yeah.
and liberating, where men would be held accountable along with women for sexual integrity. Like the double standard was women, right?
If they're caught in adultery,
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
They're in trouble.
Yeah, they're in trouble. But men, you can do whatever you want. It's encouraged. And so these early Christian communities are shaping up guys to become really like responsible, mature, awesome dads and husbands. There's no other community promoting that as a public virtue, but the Christians are doing that. Women have a status in these communities that's much higher than they have in most other public spaces. Slaves and their masters both are part of these communities, and they eat at the same table. This weird thing called the love feast, right?
Yeah.
The poor and the rich sit in the same room and they sing songs together. And these people take care of their widows and the orphan.
Yeah.
There's nothing like this. The world's
Right.
never seen anything like these communities. So Hurtado's point is it was actually the social security web in these cities of highly mobile people, lots of disconnected people, and they discovered families, new families. And so the social capital that people found in these communities was worth all of the other ostracism. That's his argument. It makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
It's powerful to think about. Here's another awesome scholar of early Christianity, N.T. Wright, Nicholas Thomas Wright. This is from his book on Paul, but it really helps us get into this, understand what he's doing in the book of Acts. This is about Paul's view of the idols and Greek and Roman gods. So Wright says, one of the strongest convictions of early Judaism is that there is only one true and good creator God. And it's a mistake of the first order to suppose that this God can be contained within or identified with anything in this present world, namely making idols. With one exception, written into the charter of Jewish monotheism, what we call the opening chapters of Genesis, there is one creature who was designed not to contain the creator God, but to reflect him as an image of the divine.
Yeah.
And of course, that's humanity. Paul's radical rejection of idolatry was based on the conviction that not only does it diminish God, it also diminishes those who actually do bear the divine image. That's such a good insight.
Yeah. Yeah. By promoting these statues of Artemis, I am not acknowledging that the thing I'm looking for is already reflected in who God
Yes.
made me.
Yeah, we are the divine image, not something that we make. Point is that it dishonors God and it dishonors humans.
Yeah.
To give or ascribe exalted honor to something that we make.
Yeah.
So this is what he fleshes out in the rest of the quote. He says, it diminishes the divine image in humans. It steals humanity's privilege and bestows it elsewhere. Humans were supposed to image God by running his world. Page 1, Genesis. Reflecting into the world the glory and the wisdom of its maker. And Paul's Jewish reaction against the dehumanization that results from idolatry was heightened by his belief that this one true God has come at last among us as the truly human being, whose aim it was to precisely rehumanize other humans and rescue them from corruption that comes when sex money, war, and power are worshipped and given total allegiance. So again, we're getting inside. It wasn't just, I worship that God because I think it's, what I'm worshiping is the embodiment of war.
Yeah.
Or Mammon. So he goes on, instead of invoking Bacchus, the god of wine, or Aphrodite, the goddess of sex, by getting high on liquor or sex, that's how you worship them. Let's go down to the corner temple and have an orgy.
And you're worshiping.
And you is a form of worship of Aphrodite. Or instead of invoking Mars or Mammon by exalting war making or making money, it's now possible to invoke the spirit of the living God and be remade in his likeness to become a renewed, freshly image-bearing human being.
It's so interesting that to worship Aphrodite is to get high on sex. It's like, what's the difference then? Someone who's still
Yes.
seeking that today, we don't call it Aphrodite,
Yeah,
but it's, I guess, the same
it's the same. That's right.
form of worship.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's why I think this is so helpful.
Yeah.
And why authors of like Timothy Keller,
Yeah.
this has been a big theme of his writing and teaching, is helping Westerners, modern
Understand
secular
that we
Westerners.
all idol worship.
That's right. Our lives look identical to ancient Romans, secular Americans.
Yeah, we just don't have the same mythology wrapped around it.
Correct. And if anything, you could argue, especially sex,
Yeah.
because of the nature of the digital image and the way that images find themselves into every part of our lives now.
Yeah.
Sexualized images that we have deified sexual fulfillment in a way probably like no other culture in the history of the human race.
Right.
The economy,
Yeah, I mean,
national security.
yeah, national security, exalting war making or
Yeah.
making money.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what we do.
Totally, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and we call it national security, and
That's right.
and we call
Yeah,
it
and we don't.
economic
Basically,
gains.
all we're missing is a ritual of animal sacrifice, but
Because that would just make it weird.
that just makes it weird. Yeah, totally. But in terms of giving your whole life to taking on huge amounts of student loan, sacrificing your marriage for overworking to make money. In many layers of our economy, that's just assumed. You'll give up the rest of your life to come live in New York, and well, what did we were together when somebody called it careerism.
Careerism.
Yeah. You ruin your life,
Yeah.
but you have a great career. And that's exactly what N.T. Wright is saying. Paul's rejection of idolatry is dethroning those human-made constructs as being able to give us our true identity and true meaning and purpose. And that it's when we recognize the life of Jesus given to me in his kingdom announcement, in his death, his resurrection, in his spirit, that's a way of being human that is true life. So in that sense, that's why the Gospels and the message of the apostles sounds as striking as it does in the 21st century as it did in the first. And if it doesn't have a political,
Bite.
culture-cutting, economic edge to it,
Right.
then we probably aren't.
We've tamed it down too much.
We probably domesticated it.
Yeah.
Speaking of